Welcome to the Basketball and Brew podcast produced by Jude McLaren, and I'm your host, Dan Miller. Thank you for joining us for this week's podcast, and please help us out by subscribing to our podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you are watching, and please give us a follow on Twitter. Today's podcast is brought to you by our sponsors, both right here in beautiful San Marcos, Texas. Pie Society is an excellent stop in San Marcos for great New York-style pizzas made with the freshest ingredients, local beers on tap, and overall fun and cool vibe. And come into Zelik's Ice House for their happy hour drink specials, spacious outside patio, and a great time with friends. We are excited to welcome TCU assistant coach Duane Broussard to our podcast. Coach Broussard is entering his fifth season as assistant coach at TCU, where the Horned Frogs have been to back-to-back NCAA tournaments. Before arriving at TCU, Coach spent 6 seasons as assistant coach at UCLA, including 2 as associate head coach, 10 seasons at New Mexico, and 9 seasons at Bradley University, where Coach also played 4 seasons. Through 25 years serving on college basketball staffs, Broussard has helped his team to combine .643 winning percentage and being part of 516 NCAA Division I wins. Coach, that's impressive. Coach Broussard, welcome to Basketball and Brew podcast.
Thank you, Coach Miller. Hey, you know what? I had no idea all that the quantification of those stats would sound so good, man. Thank
Coach,
you.
it sounds good, and knowing you for a long time, I know that you're a winner and your team's win, Coach. I'm excited about talking some TCU basketball.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And I want to hear about some of these stops along the way before TCU. But I want to dive right into it, Coach. This summer's busy. I know with recruiting, with the July period, with having your guys on campus and the new guys.
Right.
How are things going this summer at TCU?
I'd say pretty productive. We've been really busy. We've switched up some things. We work out in the mornings,
okay,
which gives us pretty much all of our day to kind of do some other things. But I think more importantly, it gives our young men time to go to class and then get in the gym afterwards, and then get to bed at night because they got to get right back up in the morning. So
right.
It's been really good. I think with all the new faces that we do have and some of the new concepts that we're trying to put in, it's just been good to kind of see the energy and the chemistry come together in the past 5 or 6 weeks. And
right.
Looking forward to having hopefully another successful year here at TCU.
Yeah, you guys have had a great run along with Coach Dixon, and that Big 12 is so tough, Coach. I can't wait to talk a little bit more about the Big 12. I want to dive into that conference, man. Is something. But I got to ask about the last season. One thing I noticed, and the stats prove it right, is that your transition offense was very good, Coach. You were fast breaking, and I just want to ask, what did you guys do as a staff maybe between 2021 and 2022 to put such an emphasis and have such a good running transition offensive program?
Right. Well, I'm glad you asked that question, Dan. We had to take a really deeper dive into how to score baskets and how to score baskets in an easier fashion. Everybody talks about how tough the Big 12 is, and it's tough because there are Hall of Fame coaches. There are coaches that have won, thousands of games, and I may be exaggerating, but it's just, and they have really good players. So coming down on offense is not always easy when you run half court offense, right? It's just not. When you look collectively at our effective field goal percentage defense across the board, I think it's like 45%. You're a coach. If you're shooting less than 42%, or you're stopping your opponent from shooting more than 42%, you're doing pretty well. And our entire conference is like that. So when we looked at the team that was returning, Damian, Mike, Emmanuel Miller, Micah Peavy, Chuck O'Bannon, okay, just to name a few of the guys on the team, we had to figure out how are we going to score some easy buckets. And in particular for Mike and Damian, because they were our primary.
Coach, I think
increase their efficiency, especially for the next level. Last year or last spring, I think Mike and Damian talked about testing the waters and going to the NBA and looking at their numbers from one season, the previous season to this season.
Yep.
We had to figure out a way to make them feel like they could help our offense move a lot better. And so that's kind of how we started looking at transition offense.
Yep.
Getting out and running and then also putting in some absolutes that could really bode well, not only in non-conference games but in conference games to try to score the ball the way we have.
Right.
So that's where it sort of started out of just looking at the analytics and just trying to figure out, okay, how do we get better as a program and how do we increase our efficiency offensively?
Right. And then when you do that, Coach, and you get the guys in the summer, and last summer you implemented this, and obviously you had success with it. How do you start with that as far as?
Can you hear me? I can't hear you though.
Oh, you can't hear me, Coach?
Hold on for 1 second.
No problem.
Sorry.
We'll get it fixed, Coach. Sometimes just a quick pause.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I got you, Coach.
I can't hear you. What can I do? I can't.
I didn't hit mute or anything, did I, Coach?
Can you hear me now? Hold on.
We'll get this, Coach. No problem. The good thing is we can edit it right up.
Okay. I lost you.
You got me now, Coach? No? A little technical difficulties. We'll get it right back up. Maybe should we stop it, Jude, and just come right back to it? He's going to come back on, I believe. Well, if you're watching live, you're probably wondering what's going on. We're going to get Coach Broussard back on. If you're not watching live, you won't be hearing this because we're going to edit it right out. If he logs in, here he comes on. There you go, Coach.
I don't know what happened.
Good. You good?
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I'm good.
Coach,
yeah,
that's
sorry
it.
about that.
The best thing is, Coach, we'll edit this right out. That's why I got a producer. So when this is on Apple Podcasts, they won't even know what happened.
That's right. It's good.
Great.
It's good.
Yep.
That's good.
It's perfect. No, Coach, what I wanted to ask then about how do you get that with your guys when they come in the summer and be a team that, okay, hey guys, we want to play faster. Is there certain drills you're doing, or are you just talking about it, stressing it? How do you change to become a team that's, you run a little to a team that's, we're playing fast, guys?
Right. Well, a lot of the guys that came into the program that are here now this summer were guys that obviously we recruited, we handpicked, and we told them specifically what we were going to be doing.
Right.
And I think they were attracted to that. I think the returners had already kind of gotten accustomed to everything that we were trying to do. In particular, strength and conditioning and nutrition, and trying to work through that. So the mindset was there in terms of building on the success we had this past year to run even more. So yes, to answer your question more succinctly, we do have drills. We do watch a ton of film.
Right.
We do have absolutes that we talk about, things that we do specifically in our transition game that allows us to be highly effective.
Yep.
And it's every single day that we have practice, we are doing something to better our position as a transition-oriented team every single day. So, we'll start fundamentally from the base. We'll do a lot of bust-out drills, 1 on 0, 2 on 0, 3 on 0, and then also talking about where you go when the ball goes up and the outlet pass happens.
Right.
Okay, going to the near sideline, running to the dead corners, running to the slots. Okay, if you're a point guard and you're an outlet guy, making sure that you're crossing the street and trying to get to the trying to get to the paint. Okay, and also too, our kids are trained to know that if it's on a miss, we are running, period. Right. We're not calling plays.
Yep.
So these are the things that we talk about. And then the buildup of that is 3 on 2, 2 on 1 drills.
Yep.
Okay. Ladder drills, 3 on 2, and then, 2 on 1 or 2 on 1, 3 on 2, 4 on 3, 5 on 4, 5 on 5. We do that continuously, Dan. We do it continuously. Even when we go 5 on 0 transition and we start talking about it, Coach is a stickler on making sure guys are in the right position always.
Right.
Okay. Making the right catch, making the right reads, and then trying to score the basketball at a high pace.
Right.
So we do a lot of that every single day.
Right. I love those bust out drills, Coach. And those are so important. And I got to ask, Coach, if you don't mind me not getting into too much of the secrets or anything, but do you guys like to have a rim runner, or do you like to have more open spacing so that point guard or the lead guard can get downhill?
Well, I can tell you this. This is not disclosing any secrets. There's 4 things that we will typically do. Okay. On a miss basket. Okay, 4 things that we typically do. First of all, you got to get the outlet, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So our first look is up the court. So if we can pitch it ahead and try to score it, we're going to do that. Okay. But we also are telling our guys, no matter who gets the ball, we're running to our spots.
Right.
Okay. So we try to leave the middle of the court open. Okay. And we try to occupy the dead corners.
Yep.
And the slots.
Yep.
So that our point guard, who's crossing the street, so to speak,
mm-hmm.
and he's going diagonal. So whichever side of the court that he catches the ball on, Coach Miller, on the other end, he's going to try to touch the opposite side of the paint. We're trying to get a paint touch.
Yep.
Okay. So we pitch it. If we don't get the pitch, it's pitch. Because sometimes you can pitch it ahead and hit somebody else to get into our second and third drives. Okay. Because we're trying to score. Okay. The third thing we're going to do is the point guard's going to try to take it as deep as he possibly can and bounce pass or pitch or lob to try to score. And then the fourth thing we do, which we don't do a lot of, is drag screening. Okay. And we only drag if the big is the one that gets the rebound and outlets it.
Yep.
Okay.
And he's the trail. Yep.
And he's the trail. The trail. So I would tell you that the bigs in our program, they automatically know that if he gets the rebound and outlets it, then he's probably going to get a drag.
Right.
But bigs don't always rebound.
Yep.
So we tell them, if you don't rebound and you're not the outlet guy, you got to run down the court. And then if we don't score in the first 5, 6, 7, 8 seconds, then we're going to flow right into motion.
Okay.
And those are the things that we try to do.
Yep. Exactly. And that's what I was going to ask, Coach. What do you do in practice then to work on that motion? Because you want to obviously get a shot up if you can in your fast break, but a lot of times if a defense is loaded and is back, are there certain things you do to work on that motion when you're not calling plays that the guys can keep that flow and they're not looking back to you guys as a coaching staff?
Exactly. There's a lot of 5-on-0 that takes place. Mm-hmm. And the 5-on-0 starts with the transition, and we will designate, okay, this time we're going to go in transition. We're not going to get a shot, and we're going to move that ball to the first, second, and third side, maybe get 10 passes. Coach likes to use the terminology grind. Let's grind it out. And and really that ends up being, I would say, about 25% of our practice.
Okay.
Just that 5-on-0 and all the different options that we get out of it.
Yep.
Because there's so many different reads. And he's also a real stickler on not doing the same action twice.
Yeah.
Okay. You can't do the same action twice. Yep. And so sometimes if you've watched us, you notice that we play with a tremendous amount of space.
Yep.
Okay. But there are 2 things that are going to be constant. Okay. You're going to see some chin screens, and you're going to see some ball screens.
Yep.
Okay. And I would say a third is driving into space and playing off of 2 feet. So that's 4 things right there. Those are the 4 things that you're always going to see. Now, how we get from all that to scoring the basket, that's in the details.
Sure.
Okay. And it's a lot of randomness that goes on, but really because we go over it all the time, Dan, our kids automatically know what the reads are going to be.
Yep.
And they get really comfortable with no matter what the defense is doing, whether it's a load up or switch or ice and ball screens, then we have a reaction to that no matter what. And so I think it gives our kids a whole lot of confidence knowing that if you don't score in transition, we're going to flow right into offense and we're going to get something. We're going to get something.
Yeah.
And I think there is, in a nutshell, fundamentally why we decided to play the way we're playing, because we're trying to increase our offensive efficiency.
Yep.
And so out of those different actions, I mean, if you don't get a 3, or if you don't get a drive to a bounce pass kick out, or if you don't get a post speed, or if you don't get to the free throw line, then you know what? We're not doing something right.
Right.
And so we work on that every single day. And coach is really big, especially with the drive run and the 5-on-0 and the 4-on-0 stuff, and breaking it down every single day.
Yep. Being very precise where those guys
very
are running
precise.
to those spots,
exactly.
those corners.
Exactly.
Coach, I love that. And you guys do play with great spacing. And then I love how you guys play off 2, which is it's dear to me. I love that.
Yeah.
Playing off 2 is so important. Coach Dixon's teams have been traditionally great rebounding teams. And I just got to ask, how much rebounding are you guys doing in practice? Or does it just come out in your 5-on-5 play? Or in the beginning of the season, do you do a little bit more rebounding drills? Can I just ask about rebounding at TCU?
Absolutely. So, Dan, if you go back into the into the stats 2 years ago, and you look at our cumulative stats and you compare those with what the nation, all the Power Five schools and all the schools in the country were doing rebound wise, we led the country in rebounding 2 years ago.
Yep.
And did a phenomenal job in that area. And a lot of it is because we figured we weren't going to be a great 3-point shooting team. And we had determined that during the summer because we just didn't have really, really, really great shooting. And so how else were we going to score? Right. Well, we had, athletic, physically gifted guys, older guys who were hungry to go try to score a basket. So we just drilled every single day, even in practice, even in the summertime, how to position, how to go get it, how to pivot and throw the outlet pass. And that carried over into the season. I think this year we took a back step. I don't think we were as effective rebounding as we needed to be.
Okay.
And maybe it's because we started running and then we had guys leaking out. I mean, that's just kind of makes sense. That's how it works. But we have gotten back to rebounding. And I think rebounding, Dan, is a mentality.
Right.
I really think it's a mentality. I think if you have a toughness and you have a persistent-minded coach that stresses that every single day like Coach Dixon does, then I think the results are going to be pretty fruitful. Yep. And so, yes, we do a lot of that. Now, I will tell you, for the first 4 or 5 weeks of our summer practices, we haven't been doing it as much. But now that July is here, and we're taking a foreign trip, we're going to Paris and London here in August, we will start to do more rebounding drills. And it's nothing elaborate. I'll be honest with you. It's nothing elaborate. It's just bone on bone. Let's just go hit. That's just what it is.
Yeah.
And getting our young men into a mindset that to play at this level, to play in this league, you're going to have to be physical.
Yep.
You're going to have to hit, and you're going to get hit. So I think Coach does a phenomenal job with that. And it is a major emphasis in our program.
Yes. And I want to ask you too, just with recruiting, because, being a Power 5 school, you're looking at the top of the top, but then sometimes is that a separator maybe of a guy that you will go after a little bit harder if he's a tough go get it guy? And
so philosophically, okay, when you go to recruit, you got to have some sort of framework, right? I've always felt you just can't blindly go into a situation and say, okay, I like him or I like this person. You got to know what characteristics and qualities best suit how you want to play and where you're playing.
Right.
Okay. There's 2 things that we look for.
Okay.
Toughness and athleticism.
Right.
Tough. That to me is at the core of what we look for. Okay. Now, I didn't say character. If I'm in the gym recruiting, I've already checked out your character and your academics. Okay. But the 2 things that have to stick out would be toughness and athleticism because of how we play, because of Coach Dixon and how he wants to develop his program to possibly win a national championship. Okay. And if you notice, teams that have had a tremendous amount of success in the past 5 years, they're extremely tough. Probably fairly athletic, right, and fairly committed to that process of playing a physical brand of basketball. And so, to me, that's where our recruiting starts, and that's where it ends. That's what we look for. We don't always get the ideal player, but going into a recruiting situation, that is what we're looking for, Coach Miller.
Yep. Okay. I love that. Well, Coach, I want to ask you a little bit about yourself.
Sure.
You've been doing this at 4 different Division I universities and doing a great job now at TCU, but take me back to why you decided to become a coach. And I know you played 4 years of Division I college basketball, but at what point did you decide, you know what, I want to do this for a living. I want to coach.
Yeah. Well, coaching wasn't something that I had always endeared to be or envisioned that I would be. As a side note, I actually went to college and thought that I would eventually work in federal law enforcement and had an opportunity to interview 3 or 4 different times with the United States Secret Service.
Wow.
And thought maybe if I could do that, then eventually I can get to the FBI or something like that. And but my opinion changed dramatically for 2 reasons. One, my college coach, who is my one of my dearest friends. I count him as basically a brother. He and I had developed a tremendous relationship, and I saw the life that he was leading and how he was impacting young men's lives. And I felt like at the end of my college career, Dan, I just hadn't experienced enough of what it was like to be successful. My first 2 years in college were very difficult. And being away from home, being from Texas and going to school in Illinois, I mean, it was difficult. And then it wasn't until my last year, my senior year, that we kind of started to enjoy some success. And so I wanted to carry that over a little bit. So my college coach brought me in, talked to me, recruited me to be a coach, and gave me an opportunity. And so that was one reason. The other reason was simply growing up in Houston, Texas. I was a ball boy for the Houston Rockets. I may have told you that. And I was a ball boy during the 80s, which was a lot of good basketball.
Right.
And there was one gentleman in particular who coached at the time for the Seattle Supersonics. It was Bernie Bickerstaff.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And Bernie Bickerstaff, among other things, was a person that, in some respects, looked like me. And so, being an African American and having a tremendous role model that was an NBA coach, and getting to know him because I was a ball boy, I talked to him a lot. And I was always impressed, Coach Miller, with how he commanded his team with all those major personalities.
Yes. Yes.
He had a ton of personalities.
Sean Kemp, Gary Payton, Xavier McDaniel. Yes.
Those are some names. And so that always stuck with me. And so I wish maybe I would have talked to him more about the coaching aspect. But our conversations really centered on leadership and characteristics of players that make up a good team.
Right.
And I carried that over into my college career, and then obviously talking to my college coach at Bradley convinced me that this was the right route to take.
Right.
And so that's kind of how I got there. Yeah.
That is awesome, Coach. And I love what you said about having that mentor there and in your college coach, looking at Coach Bickerstaff as somebody that you want to aspire to, and then you're impacting people and young men. Coach, knowing you and just being friends with you, one thing that I know is important to you, you're a relationship-driven guy.
Yes, sir.
And that's important to you. Can you talk about over your 25 years of college? I run into so many coaches just doing this, and then just, by coaching in the coaching world too, who just, everyone loves Coach Broussard. So I just say so many great things. But how are relationships important to you, Coach, in this basketball fraternity?
Well, you think about it this way. You think about your own staff and the coaches you have there at San Marcos. You guys are a family. You're with them more than you're with your regular family. You're in the trenches. You're in the foxholes. You're solving problems. You're going through adversity. Well, every stop that I have been at, I have felt like that was the only stop that I was going to be at. Right. And never looked for anything more or never looked behind for anything less or what I could do better. I just decided that wherever I was, wherever my feet were going to be planted, that's where I was going to develop my relationships. And so I like to call it nesting. I like to nest.
Yeah.
I like to nest, Coach Miller. And so because of that philosophy, I've been able to develop some powerful relationships. Okay. I just mentioned the one with Coach Molinari, who's now an assistant at Boston College, who was my college coach, Steve Alford, who was a tremendous mentor and friend to me, and his assistant, Craig Neal. We were very, very tight. I worked for Richie McKay, and Richie McKay actually coached me also because he was Coach Molinari's assistant at Bradley. We were very, very tight and still are. And now Coach Dixon. And so these are people that I confide in. These are people that have given me an opportunity to grow and be a part of this profession, and I really enjoy it. And so I gain great energy from having relationships. Great energy. And there's nothing more that I like to do every day than to come to work and be around our guys and be around our coaching staff and be in a foxhole and then battling it out. That's what I like to do. And so I've made that a priority in my life, that relationship piece.
Yep. I love it, Coach. And let me ask you, take you back to your Bradley days, your first coaching jobs there
Hmm.
as an assistant at Bradley, and you stayed for a long time.
Hmm.
Um, can I ask some special memory or just something you would like to look back at when you think of Bradley coaching there as your first start that you'd like to share?
Well, probably, Bradley was the first time that I had a chance to participate in the NCAA tournament.
Mm.
And,
Hmm.
you know, back then, Bradley was known as a school that went to a lot of NITs when the
Sure.
NIT was, the
Yep.
National Invitational Tournament, when that was kind
Yep.
of a big thing. But we had never sort of, since I was there, until I was working as a coach, we had never eclipsed, winning a conference championship
Hmm.
or getting a chance to play in postseason. So, you know, getting to the NCAA tournament was an unbelievable experience.
Right.
And, and ironically, Coach Miller, one of our best players on the team at the time was a young man by the name of Anthony Parker.
Mm.
And, Candace Parker's his sister.
Oh,
And
wow.
he's now the GM of the Orlando Magic.
Yes.
So
Yes.
life kind of comes full circle. But
Wow. Mm.
that was a tremendous experience. And Bradley was also the place where my wife, she didn't attend Bradley, but she lived in the same city
Hmm.
in Peoria, Illinois.
Yep.
And so my father and husband foundation was started there.
Right.
And I was there for so long, Dan. I was there for a total, I think, 13 or 14 years.
Hmm.
I thought that was going to be where I would be for the rest of my life, or at least in the Midwest.
Yep.
So that's
Yep.
why Bradley was really special. And there's some really special people there in the administration, people that I'm friends with today, people within the community that I love and
Hmm.
cherish. And it was a really good spot for me. But that NCAA tournament, because you think about it, for a mid-major program to get to the NCAA tournament, you either had to have had a great non-conference and conference season with a great record,
Yep.
or you had to win 3 games in a postseason tournament to get there.
Yep.
Okay. Well, we had a pretty good record, but we didn't win our postseason tournament. But we were so good because we had beaten some really good teams that year. Our ranking was very high, and so we got an at-large bid. So
Okay.
that was phenomenal.
Yeah.
That was a phenomenal thing for me. So I remember that about Bradley. It
Yes.
was a great place.
That is awesome, Coach. And that feeling when you see your name come across as an at-large team and you're participating, that must have been just an unbelievable time
Oh,
for everyone there at Bradley.
it was I still remember it like it was yesterday,
Yeah.
and nothing will ever replace that feeling. It
Mm.
is a really good feeling, Dan. It
Yeah.
really and truly is. I mean, you've experienced it.
Yep.
You know what it's like to have a chance to have a really good year and win at a high level, and then
Yep.
get a chance to win some games that maybe you didn't think you would, or
Yep.
have a chance to play in a state tournament or something
Yep.
like that. I mean, you know what that
Yep.
feels like. So
Yeah, Coach, that is awesome. And then you go to New Mexico and
yeah,
you're there for 10 years, I believe,
yeah.
so I love what you said about nesting and just doing a great job and being where your feet are. Tell me about your time at New Mexico, Coach, and some special memories there.
Yeah, so I have grown and matured to the point in this profession where you can't always be in this position, but I like to be in a coaching position when you're going into a new environment for the very first time.
Hmm.
Okay, I love kind of trailblazing and working through all the kinks and the problems that you have in the program and recruiting and whatnot to build a champion. I love that process.
Right.
And New Mexico was a little bit like that.
Okay.
Okay. It was a little bit like that for the university and the program. But if you recall, New Mexico's in the Mountain West Conference. The Mountain
Yep.
West Conference was formed in 1999, and I got there in 2001.
Mm.
Okay, so the conference was brand new.
Yep.
All right, really good teams. I mean, I can't name them all, but obviously New Mexico, San Diego State. Obviously, San Diego State was a national champion runner-up.
Yep.
UNLV, the tradition there.
Mm.
Wyoming, Colorado
Yep.
State.
Yep.
All these places, Boise, Utah, BYU at the time.
Yep.
So it was good to be a part of a conference at the ground floor. Okay. And to be in a place like New Mexico, because when you build a champion there, everybody comes out to see you because of the pit.
Right.
The pit is a nationally recognizable arena, and the fans there are just amazing. And so I remember those days, and I remember going to work every day and recruiting and being with Coach McKay and our staff and understanding what that was all about. I think away from the job, my family was young. My two children, my son and my daughter, were young, and they were experiencing a lot of things. And Albuquerque was a good place for my family,
Yeah.
Coach Miller. It was a really, really good place. And so I also remember that aspect of it.
Right.
And, and just adding to the rich tradition that is Lobo basketball.
Yep.
It just because, I was a part of staffs that I think in total, I think I was there. It might have been 10 or 11 years. That sounds about right. But I think I was a part of 6 championships.
Yeah.
That's a part of 6 championships. So it's an amazing thing, man. It really
amazing
was.
run. Coach, those were some great teams, and I remember watching them. And I was going to say, now you get to the NCAA, you're at New Mexico, you're going to the NCAA tournament regular. And
Right.
I think you had a 32-win season one year in there, something crazy. And so that success, and then you end up going with Coach Elford, am I right, to UCLA?
Yes.
And so now you're at a blue blood program in UCLA, and one that has, as we know, multiple national championships, and you're in the bright lights of Hollywood. So what was your time like at UCLA, Coach? And how was that transition for your family and just everything?
Yeah, well, I think when I got the call that Steve had taken the job, or Coach Alford had taken the job at UCLA, he called me. Dan, he called me and he said, "Hey, we've had a really good run here, and I think it's time for us to move on, and I'm going to take the job at UCLA." And I was quick to say, "Coach, congratulations, man. I'm happy for you and your family." And then the next words that came out of his mouth, he said to me, "Oh, and you're coming with me."
You had no choice. You were going.
I had no choice, man. And so my jaw kind of dropped. And then I told my wife, I kid you not, she was a little nervous, right? Albuquerque's a town of maybe 500,000, but it's spread out. And it's a little bit quieter pace, a little bit slower pace in Albuquerque. And then you go to LA, it's a little bit faster.
Yeah.
A little bit faster. But the transition there was great.
Yeah.
I think Steve Alford is a tremendous program builder. I think he has a tremendous blueprint for success, and I think it's evident in wherever he's been. He's brought those teams to prominence.
Sure.
NCAA tournaments and lots of wins and really good players. For me personally, aside from the winning that we were able to do there in my 6 years, and you know how it is, Dan. I mean, just in all honesty, you have to win a national championship and you have to get to a Final Four. I mean, that's the expectation there.
Right.
And I'll be the first to tell you that we fell short in that area, but we did have some very good teams, and we were successful. I think the biggest thing that I got out of that was every day, Coach Miller, every single day that I went to work and I parked my car under Pauley Pavilion, before I got out of my car, I had to take a deep breath, because that particular job demands the very best of you every single day.
Right.
Not that the other jobs that I've been a part of and staffs don't, but there, because of its reputation and its global reputation and tradition, it's just something different. It's just something different. And so I was very appreciative of my time. I was very appreciative of the people there in Los Angeles that gave us a chance. Right. And like I said, we had really good players. We had NBA caliber type players. We played an exciting style. And we did add to the history because we won a championship. Yep. We won a championship my first year there.
Yep.
And just overall, a really, really neat experience, man. I really enjoyed that experience.
Right. And I know you did a great job there, as you do every spot, of recruiting, and you brought in some big time players. I know you were responsible for that. Some guys that are playing professionally now. So,
yeah. Well, that was the other side of it. It was almost like, now when you make a phone call or you go to a city, no matter where you are, people recognize the 4 letters, UCLA.
Yeah.
And your competition for each young man that we were fortunate to get. I mean, you're talking about going against the best of the best. So what does that do? That brings out the best in you.
Right.
That brings out the best in you. And
right.
and so that was neat, man. That was a neat experience. I can recall, going to Rupp Arena, Coach Miller, and playing against Kentucky. And I think Kentucky may have been number one at the time. And I think we were 15 and going into Rupp Arena and with that particular team. And I think, Lonzo Ball and TJ Leaf and Aaron Holiday and, and Bryce Alford and Thomas Welsh. These are just names. And I don't like to mention names randomly, but just the experience alone, I think warrants it. We beat Kentucky in Rupp. And, that's a milestone in my career.
Yeah.
It's a milestone. And to experience that was fantastic. Now, later on that year, they beat us in a Sweet 16, but, what they say, man, payback, but it's all good. It's all good, man. It was a really good experience. Really good experience. Yeah.
Right. And another good run. So NCAA tournament reached at Bradley, New Mexico, a lot of NCAA tournament UCLA. And now you are at TCU 4 years.
Yes,
you guys
sir.
have been back to back. And being here in your state, as we're both in Texas, TCU now has become a basketball brand. And, I haven't been,
wow.
It really is. And y'all are dominating in so many sports, obviously, football, baseball, there's so much good things going on at TCU, but basketball at TCU is really good in this state, and the state knows it. So it's a big deal when TCU's on you. Can I ask, you've been here now 4 years,
Yes, sir.
Just what it's been like to just see that transition in the 4 years you're here? And I know Coach Dixon's very successful wherever he is, and just, do you all feel that as a staff? Because maybe you don't see it because you're on the inside. You're just trying to do what you do. But I feel that now.
Well, the perception has changed.
Mm-hmm.
Coach Miller, the perception is definitely changed. When we go out into the public space, people recognize you as being a program that is doing some good things.
Right.
The impetus behind that for me, the driving force rather behind that for me, was 4 years ago. Coach Dixon gave me an opportunity to come back home to the state where I grew up in.
Yep.
And essentially without question, right? And so that was the first thing. And then I started doing some research on the program itself, because I really hadn't studied TCU that much.
Sure.
I came here basically saying, I'm just going to get closer to my family and try to help the program be successful and maybe open up some new recruiting lines.
Sure.
Right. And Coach Dixon, being from Los Angeles, and as a side note, he went to the same high school that my son went to, so there was a connection there. So it was good. He was a very considerate man, and I really appreciated him giving me the opportunity. I read an article, Dan, when I first got here. CBS Sports did an article, and they took states, the most popular states where they have the most college basketball programs, and they went around to all the states, California, New York, Ohio, Illinois, and Texas and whatnot, and they ranked all the schools in those particular regions. And, of the 15 or more Division I programs here in the state of Texas, TCU was like 9th or 10th. And I got to tell you, I was very offended by that, Dan. I was very, very offended by that.
Sure.
And so I told my wife, I said, you know what, if I have anything to do with this, then I am going to make sure that I'm a part of winning here.
Right.
And I will do what it takes, and became very committed to that purpose. Right. That we would not be a team that would be recognized as the 9th best Division I basketball program in the state. I don't know if we can be number 1, but we're certainly not going to be number 9. I'm sorry.
Yep. Right.
Okay.
Right.
And so that sort of morphed into, playing a certain way and recruiting a certain way, and trying to figure out how to build better relationships with people and open up, new pathways to success.
Yep.
And I think that's where we are right now. In addition, having gone through a pandemic, right? And having gone through probably one of the worst seasons that Coach Dixon has ever been a part of as a head coach. Never want that to happen again.
Right.
I after Coach Dixon won a gold medal with that under 19 team a couple years back, he had this tremendous smile on his face, and I said to myself then, that I want to make sure that for the most part, when he comes to work and when he leaves work, that he's got a smile on his face.
Right.
And so that was another driving force.
Sure.
And so that has gotten us where we are today. Now, Tony Benford might have a different driving force. Jamie McNeely, our other sister, may have a different driving force, but that was a driving force for me.
Sure.
And I think collectively, I think we can all agree that we very much enjoy what's happening here, and our administration is behind us 100%.
Right.
And it's been really, really good.
Right.
And hopefully we can continue to build on that success and maybe win a national championship.
Yep. Right. And you guys have a great team coming back. Can't wait to watch you guys play. Can you tell me about this trip you have coming up in this, and just how that works for maybe somebody who's going to listen to this podcast and tell them about how a foreign trip works, and wow, London and Paris, that's going to be a great trip.
I think so.
Man,
I think
that's
so.
cool. Yeah.
Well, typically the NCAA allows you to take a foreign trip with your team every 4 years. Well, coming out of COVID, I think foreign travel to play games was halted a little bit just because the world was on pause.
Sure.
And so because of that, we could have gone somewhere last year, but we didn't. And we thought this was probably the opportune time to do it because we are somewhat new. I think we have, when it's all said and done, we'll have 5 or 6 new players in key positions.
Sure.
And so this year, taking a trip and going across the pond, as they say, as opposed to going to like a Costa Rica or the Bahamas, was something that Coach Dixon really wanted to do. And so we researched a number of different spots and tried to figure out from an educational standpoint what would be better, from a social standpoint, and what our kids can learn, and then from a team bonding standpoint because of the competition level of the teams that we'd be playing.
Right.
And so I think that's how we were able to come up with Paris and then London.
Yeah.
And I give a lot of credit to Coach Dixon and also to Thomas Montague, who's our director of operations, for putting together an outstanding itinerary. And we can't wait. We can't wait. The other aspect of preparing for a foreign tour that's beneficial to your team is that you're allowed to have 10 practices.
Yes.
You can have 10 full-length practices. And so, again, with a team that has some returners and some new guys, including freshmen, it makes sense to at least be able to have a few more practices to get that experience up so that when the real season comes, we'll be ready.
Right. Absolutely.
So that's why we're taking the tour.
Yeah, it's going to be good, Coach. I look forward to hearing about it when you guys get back. And can I ask, Coach, this has been great, by the way. I know we have a few minutes left. I have a few more questions. I just want to ask about that Big 12. You alluded to it earlier with Hall of Fame coaches across the conference. You got our guy, Coach Tang, coming in, doing a great job. Doing a great job at Kansas State now.
Doing a great job, yep.
So, it's a loaded conference. And just can you just kind of take me through a week behind the scenes maybe of what it's like? You have 2 Big 12 games. Let's say, one's at home, one's on the road, scouting. And, just it's got to be just fascinating behind the scenes to see a staff working, as it don't matter who you play. It's going to be a great game or a great team you're playing.
Yeah, and it's going to be a battle. It's very seldom. I was looking at some statistics, Dan, and I want to say that, I don't know, you could check this. Maybe 5% of our games are blowouts.
Yeah, they're close.
Most of our games are close games. Most of our games are decided within 5 points or less.
Yep.
I think the number's like 35% or something. Some crazy number like that.
Yep.
I mentioned to you earlier that while working at UCLA brought the best out of me every day.
Right.
This conference does that for our coaching staff, and I think coaching staffs within our conference can say the same thing.
Yep.
They'll say the same. It brings out the best.
Yep.
You got to try to figure it out, because if you come in there and you're timid or you're shy, you're unprepared, or you're not ready to play, you'll get exposed.
Yep.
And that's what makes this league so tough, night in and night out.
Right.
I think the other thing that makes it tough, Dan, is, before we added the 4 teams, which I think will help our conference be even better, to be honest with you. But before that, you played a true round robin. So you played home and away.
Yep.
You played home and away.
Yep.
In major media markets. Okay. And I think, when you're able to do that, maybe getting a Kansas on your home court them being ranked, you're not.
Yep. Yep.
You still got a chance to maybe win and maybe get
Yep.
into the tournament,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that has greatly benefited us too.
Sure.
And then you talk about the players. I think the players are all in geographical locations where you have good basketball.
Yep.
I think the Midwest in general is really good basketball.
Yep.
And I think the values there and the toughness that exists there probably bleeds into teams that are in the Big 12.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why it's been so exciting to watch. And it's primetime TV, Saturday afternoons.
Yep.
That slate. So you got a lot of visibility. You got people promoting the conference the way it is. And, I'm sure at one point when the conference was formed, people thought it'd be more of a football conference, but, and that's fine. I mean, football is great and we love it. And we're doing a really good job here with, Coach Sonny Dykes and his staff doing a really good job here. But I do think in the winter months, when you're looking for some excitement, I mean, the Big 12 is where it is. Man.
Absolutely.
That's where it is.
Yeah. Absolutely. And those Monday night games, Coach.
Monday night games are incredible.
They're incredible. I love to get home from practice myself and tune in if it's you guys or who's ever on. And now you got University of Houston coming in to the Big 12.
Wow.
BYU with their size. And, it's a great conference. It's fun to watch. Coach, this has been amazing, my friend. I have to ask, we always end the podcast asking a place to eat for the listeners out there if they come through Fort Worth and want to take in a game or any recommendations, a Fort Worth favorite from Coach Broussard?
Well, there's a number of different culinary spots that you could hit and really enlighten your palate a little bit. But when it comes to just everyday casual dining, and I'm kind of a guy like that. I love Dutch's, man. Dutch's is a burger joint on our campus.
Dutch's.
Okay, Dutch's, man. Dutch's hamburgers, shakes, fries, cookies, salads.
Okay.
All that. And I think it's part of the reason why it's called Dutch's is because it's a spinoff from we have a tradition here at TCU called the Dutch Men. And I think the Dutchmen are individuals that attend sporting events and really try to promote the culture and the tradition of TCU. And so I think Dutch's is kind of a play on words with that. And it's always packed. The hospitality and the food and the service is impeccable. So if you're ever in Fort Worth, and you want a burger, and you want to walk around our beautiful campus here, come on over to Dutch's, man, and then catch a basketball game. Basketball game or a football game or a baseball game, or a women's basketball game. So
it's all good there, Coach.
Yeah,
and that's a pro tip right there, though, Dutch's. We'll put it on the list, Coach. We're making a good list of all these spots, and that's a good burger. We needed a good burger joint, too, so I'm glad you said that.
That's right.
I love it. My friend, thank you for dropping great knowledge about your coaching career, about fast break offense, about TCU, about relationships. This has been wonderful, Coach, and I just want to thank you for taking the time to come on our podcast, and I wish you the best of luck on this trip and, of course, this season. I know we'll stay in touch.
Yes, sir. Coach Miller, thank you, man. I feel the same way you do in terms of just being here and talking with you. And, we developed a pretty close connection during the recruiting process. And
absolutely.
And I'm glad that has continued. So thanks for having me, okay?
Absolutely. Thank you, Coach.
You got
Wonderful
it,
stuff.
Thank you, man. Yep.
Wonderful. Okay. Thank you again for joining us for the podcast. And please hit subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Hit follow if you're watching or checking us out on Twitter. I want to thank my producer, Jude McLaren. This guy does it all, makes it all happen. It does so much for us. So make sure you're following his podcast, SSPN, learn about San Antonio Spurs. It's on YouTube and everywhere you can find podcasts. I want to give a shout out to our sponsors one more time. We love Pie Society, great pizza, beer, spirits. Of course, Zelix, when you're in San Marcos, check it out. It's a wonderful stop with friends. We'll see you next time on Basketball Brew, and thank you for watching.